Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Divyanshi welcoming you to another interactive session. And we have today with us an extremely special guest, an epitome of women's rights, civil justice, and flag bearer of liberal rights, respected Brinda Karat ma'am, the first women member of CPIM, Politburo, the highest decision making body of CPIM, and former General Secretary and Vice President of All India Democratic Women Association. She'll be speaking to us on various topics like national importance, youth's participation in national integrity, and voices of change. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining us, and I'm so excited to hear from you.
Thank you so much, Divyanshi. I'm very happy to join you. And I've heard that all of you are award winners and have excelled in different fields. So, congratulations to all of you too. And well, all the best for the coming year.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Your words are such a driving force for us, and I hope we all do even better.
I'm sure you will.
Okay, so, ma'am, since you are the voice of unheard, you have stood resilient on your values, on your ideologies. So, starting with the very first question, and the first question is on for women itself. So, ma'am, in India, a lot of steps have been taken constantly for women, but still we are not able to forego with all the violence against the women. And in recent years, if we see domestic violence, marital rapes are still in the picture. What do you think is the right step that needs to be taken on societal level as well as on government level?
I think that is a very critical question before us today. And unfortunately, even after so many years, we find that this is an issue which seems to concern only women because it is women and girl children who are the main victims of rape. Although there are young boys and others also who do face sexual violence. But since it is the victims who are women, in our society, it's not seen as an essential movement which concerns all citizens. So I think that is certainly a big disadvantage for those who are fighting for a secure and safe environment for women, which is a guaranteed right. Because social awareness, social intervention, social sensitivity, social outrage, that comes very rarely. I mean, you have a Nirbhaya case or you have a Hathras case, and then you will find, many sections of society coming out. But this is a daily issue in India. Lakhs of women every day in their lives are facing different degrees of sexual abuse, sexual assault, sexual violence, even in the workplace. So I think a very important issue is social change. And therefore, the need for men, for young men, to come out as strongly as young women do against a violent society against women. And I think that is also to do with our ridiculous retrogressive stereotypes of men and women, including in our educational system. So I think we need that. So that's one very important thing. जब अगर समाज खामोश रहेगी ना, अगर हम लोग सब खामोश रहेंगे, then who is going to speak out? We can't only expect the police and the political parties. So that's one point. However, having said that, I would say the lack of political will in this country to ensure that the laws are implemented. I mean, you have death penalty on the books now in India for rape, for child rape. But what is the use of it if you cannot get a conviction? Isn't it shocking that although almost 90 cases of sexual assault every day happen in India, although there's an 8% increase in rapes in India over the last year, although 1/3 of rapes are on minor girls, what is the conviction rate? The conviction rate is abysmal. Officially, it's 23%. But if you look at it, there's so many pending cases that it comes down to below 10% if you look at all the cases which have been pending for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. I have dealt on behalf of the victim in scores of legal cases where the child was raped, she's become an adult, but the case is not over. So I think that's a political will, government will, police. All these are very critical issues because once a conviction rate is down, whatever you say in the law, there's impunity for the rapist. Nah.
Very true, ma'am. It's the political will, also the societal will. In conjunction with both of them, we can have the problem solved. Uh, Stating one more issue, ma'am, you have been member of Rajya Sabha. So, we are talking about women participation, women activism. But still, in both the houses, we have seen not as representation as we have expected to be in these 7 decades. So, what's your take on it? And do you think reservation is a solution to it?
Well, I would say reservation is never a solution to anything because the fact of the matter is, if you have a society which guarantees equality, why should you have reservation? It's only when a constitutional guarantee for equality is so blatantly violated at every level that you need affirmative action, which the Constitution also has a space for. So, therefore, reservation is essential. Now, I belong to a political party, and I can tell you, with my own experience, I know that unless the law is in place, you cannot break social barriers to the extent in which it makes a change. Going from 5 to 10, okay, that's good. If my party, if we start with 5 and we go to 10, that's great, but that's not going to make the critical difference. So it's a correct point that you need that specific number minimum to make a difference. If you go from 1 to 2, it's 100% increase for my party. But unless in India we have a minimum of 1/3, minimum. Look at us in India. We have done so well in the local body elections. We have got 50% reservation for women. It's making a big difference. But when it comes to assemblies and parliament, the political will again and the barriers, because that's power. So nobody wants to share power. And we've been fighting for it. I tell you, Divyanshi, when I was in the Rajya Sabha, I remember the day. It was the 10th of March, just after Women's Day. We wanted it done on Women's Day, lekin hua nahi, 8th March ko. Kept on getting postponed. Then we fought. On 10th, 9th and 10th, the discussion took place. I mean, people were so angry that we managed to get this going. They started jumping on the table of the house. They tried to tear the bills. All the women members had to stand as a barricade to protect the minister when he was making his speech. The chairman of the house had to get people physically removed from the house. The gentleman behind me was so enraged. He stood up on his table, smashed a glass, cut his hand, and there was literally blood dripping. This is the extent of the extent of patriarchal power in our electoral system. They don't want to give up power. They say 542 seats, 180 seats will go out of their hands. So all kinds of excuses are made. What I say, it's not between men and women. It is between democracy and discrimination. because this affects democracy. If you do not allow women to have equal representation or adequate representation to begin with, where are we? What is our democracy? And if you look at the state assemblies, the average is 5%. ये क्या है बताइए? मतलब औरतें सब कुछ कर सकते हैं, लेकिन औरतें पॉलिटिक्स में या इलेक्टेड बॉडीज में या डिसीजन मेकिंग पावर्स में औरतों की कोई मत ही नहीं है, जबकि पूरे लोकल बॉडीज में, आप बताइए, ट्रिवेंड्रम में 21 साल की लड़की इतिहास बनाने जा रही है. शी इज गोइंग टू बिकम द मेयर ऑफ ट्रिवेंड्रम. 21-year-old, she's a math student. She won the elections in Trivandrum, very prestigious municipal corporation in our country, in Kerala. And she's going to become the mayor of Trivandrum. So give women a chance and they prove themselves. लेकिन वो चांस ही नहीं देना चाह रहे हैं ना. बताइए, ये सरकार बैठी है, 2/3 बहुमत है इनकी, लेकिन फिर भी ये बिल नहीं लाना चाह रहे हैं. क्यों?
That's a beautiful point, ma'am, that you highlighted, that there is a difference between democracy and discrimination. Ma'am, you've talked about patriarchy.
Meeting. Sorry, I beg pardon. Yeah, please go ahead.
No problem, ma'am. Ma'am, since you've talked about patriarchy, we have a question from one of our viewers. I'm reading out that question that is for you. Secularism basically means separation of religion from civic affairs and state, and has distinct tradition as like French and Anglo-American model, that is of banishment of religious symbol from public sphere, and much more, even while advocating atheism. Whereas the other form of secularism is taking all religions along with tolerance. What's your stand, the right way to look at the secularism in the context that no key religion is founded by women, but has a history of demeaning women?
What a very interesting question, and so well formulated and so relevant to our times, because today we are being told that the very word secularism is a dirty word, and because of secularism, everything that has happened which is bad in our country is because of secularism, whereas reality is that it is those countries which are ruled by theocracy and not democracy, in which women's rights are the most demeaned. So if we agree that secularism is essential, an essential part of our very being as Indians, and is part of India's civilizational legacy and heritage, then we can discuss the interpretations of secularism. So first, we all accept that secularism is intrinsic and essential for our development. Now, what is the definition of secularism? The question which you have raised, I don't think it is contradictory. Of course, tolerance of religion, of each other's religion, is part of our ethics and part of our ethos, or it should be accepted as that, because we are a pluralist society. At the same time, because we have a huge difference in the numbers of those believing in different religions, if you do not separate religion from state affairs, logically speaking, the majority religion will always dominate. Always. Therefore, in our society, we must consider religion a personal and private matter. This is my personal belief. A person, Indian citizen's personal sphere, a private sphere, whether I believe, whether I don't believe, whether I'm a Hindu, a Muslim, a Christian, a Sikh, a Buddhist, an Adivasi who has a totally different religion. In fact, the Jharkhand government has now said Sarna religion, which is accepted by many communities in and around Jharkhand, should be accepted as a religion. So there are so many religions. That is my private sphere, whether I believe in this or that, or whether I'm an atheist like I am. I'm a proclaimed atheist. But do I respect the right to religion? Yes, I do. I must. So there is no contradiction in my respecting your right to your religious belief, as long as I do not impose it or you do not impose it on others, which will happen if the state identifies itself with religion.
That's a beautiful narrative that you have given, and I guess all our viewers are so excited to hear you. Amazing. Since now I'm moving on to a different narrative, a bit. Mass media has been mass media has been a lot of in news. We have considered journalism as the fourth pillar of democracy. But recently released 2020 World Press Freedom Index, India has been ranked 142, down two places from 2019. And it has been declining over years. So how do you see these statistics? And does the TRP is one of the reason, or the political ideological driven media creating a vacuum for unbiased journalism?
Well, worldwide, if you look at it, it's absolutely true that now big business is controlling media houses, and the relation of the media to impartial journalism faces the biggest barrier of ownership. Therefore, if you have corporate owned media, it is bound to be influenced by the needs of that particular corporate house. Now, that has also happened in the past, but still, India could be proud of having an independent media. So I won't say there's a one-to-one, equation between the corporate-owned media and partial and fake journalism. But yes, this is a very important question, the issue of ownership. But it is also an issue, if I may say so. As you say, you're correct to say it's been happening over the years. But have you noticed that it has got so bad now? And those who are impartial and those who promote impartial journalism, giving time to both sides of a story, they are called dissenters, they are called anti-national. Their TRPs are manipulated. If they're the print media, they don't get advertisements. Now, because there are so many online websites which are becoming more and more popular, their writers, their owners, they are being hauled up in case after case in court. So the issue of the media, why are the farmers today, lakhs of farmers protesting, why are they not allowing most of the media houses, and why are they saying with big signs, Godi media? Because their struggles are not being reported and only one side is being shown. And that side is the abuse that all the farmers of our country are Naxalites, or they are Maoists, or they are communists, or they are terrorists, or they are Khalistanis, or they are Chinese agents, or they are Pakistani agents. Why? So this affects each and every citizen's right to unbiased information. If you are a student and you are getting only one type of information, how are you going to be able to form your opinion as a free citizen of India? You can't, no? So it's our right to free information as citizens which is being affected. And I think that's not good for democracy. It's not good for India. Maybe good for my party or somebody else's party if only my party views are shown. But I don't think it's good for India.
That's a very valid point that you have put, ma'am. Ma'am, how do you see the Nehruvian socialism and the move of capitalization since 90s? How do you see this change, and has this helped India to reach to its desired position or led to further disparities to grow?
Well, we have to look at the figures. I won't say that during Nehruvian time, there was a huge, there was no inequality and there was no poverty. In fact, I don't believe there was any thing as socialism during Nehru's time. It's a fact that during Nehru's time, the public sector was built up. It's a fact that during Nehru and later Indiraji's time, there was a strong move for nationalization of public assets like mining, like the banking sector, and this public sector at that time. But that was really because that is what industry wanted. At that time, industry did not, it was a newly forming industrial sector in India after centuries of British rule. And therefore, they did not have the capital. They needed the government capital. They needed the public sector. So it was actually to build capitalism to a great extent that many of these public sector companies were initially formed. But as it happened, it saved India from becoming literally, continually like a regime dependent on foreign capital. We did develop our industry. We did develop steel, coal, mining sector. And on the basis of that, we have reached a situation where we are one of the strongest developing countries. But in the 90s, the requirement of finance capital for a world without any regulations, freedom for capital but unfreedom for labor. As capital became more and more free to travel anywhere in the world with no restrictions, no regulations, what we call the neoliberal economic framework, where there are no restrictions for capital, but more and more restrictions and difficulties for labor and the working people. And where a most important aspect was the retreat of the governments in expenditures, even for basic human needs like education, food, health. All that became privatized. So when major issues for development come into the private sector for profit, obviously inequalities are going to grow now. Education becomes more expensive, parents are going to be in debt. Health becomes more expensive. The whole pandemic has shown, hasn't it, that the health sector, if we did not have those government hospitals, where would we have been today? How many citizens could afford a 5 lakh rupee package for a COVID patient? क्या होता आप देखिए. So this neoliberal framework of an unequal world with the hope that, yes, if the rich get richer, then something will trickle down and help the poor. So inequalities become obscene all over the world and in India also. We know that. You have all the figures before you. I mean, 90% of our country people earn less than 10,000 rupees a month. What is it? And yet we have huge inequality. We have the richest. And the tragedy for us is we have such brilliant young people. You know that, na? Divyanshi, in your sphere,
Yes, ma'am.
such bright young people. And if they are given an equal opportunity, the sky is the limit. in every field. Look at cricket, look at sports. From the smallest towns of India, we have the most brilliant sports people. Some of our brightest scientists, young people today, their inventions coming from small towns. Cultural artists, look at our actors, our actresses from small towns. How brilliant are they today? So, if you are given an opportunity, and that opportunity can be there, if at least at the beginning we have a level playing field. I think in,
Thank you so much, ma'am, for giving this narrative, this side of the coin.
I think young people deserve a better chance.
True, ma'am. Very true. Ma'am, my next question is a little general question. In India, we have been talking about, in the world, we are talking about the right wing and left wing ideologies. And both these ideologies came up during the French Revolution. So, if we have to precisely define what left wing activism or left wing ideology is, what it is, if we talk from India's perspective.
Well, Doreen, if you look at the development of the left wing in India, we have to go back to the freedom struggle, because there were three streams in the freedom struggle. That was the national mainstream led by the Congress Party and Gandhiji. Then we had the whole stream of the social reformers, the Ambedkarites and the whole stream of social reformers. You had the left, in which right from the beginning, from 1920 itself, the assertion of the left in politics. And then you had the extreme right wing, which believed in religious identities, whether it was the Muslim League, whether it was the RSS. So there are definite ideological differences from the freedom struggle itself. So how do we look at the freedom struggle? What was essential in the freedom struggle? What were the similarities between the national mainstream movement led by the Congress, the left and the right wing? So the two which had absolutely nothing in common was the right wing and the left. The right wing believed basically in developing a religious identity. The right wing believed that that was the way of religious identity. And that obviously was used by the British as part of its divide and rule policy. So you had the Muslim League and you had the RSS and the Hindu Mahasabha and all those other religious organizations. And on the other hand, you had the left. Now, taking that forward, what was the contribution of the left in that? It was bringing in workers, bringing in peasants, bringing in the poor. So right from the freedom struggle, the fight for India's independence symbolized with what Bhagat Singh said. And Shahid Bhagat Singh, inspired by the Soviet Revolution, knowing that India had to find its own path, not the Soviet path, but the Indian path to socialism. His last major writing was on the revolutionary program for India. And what was it basically? A nation's wealth must belong to the people. A nation's wealth cannot belong either to the colonial rulers or the brown sabs who will take over industry and the wealth of India for private profit. So the difference between the right and the left basically is what happens to national wealth and how is that to be created and how is national wealth to be used. So our belief is even today, in a period of recession, we believe it is not giving concessions to big business houses as is being done for the last so many years, but putting more money in the pockets of the people to expand the market, expand demand, and therefore give that kickstart to industry which is in a recession. And particularly in rural India, we need a much, much bigger investment. Private sector is not going to do it unless they make profit. So it's not as though we don't have the wealth. It's not as though we don't have the talent. It is the way that it has been used for private profit, which is the DNA of the right wing and anathema to the left wing.
Ma'am, this is definitely the other perspective we have got about the left wing, and it would clear many people's thought process. So I'm really thankful to you, ma'am, for this answer. Ma'am, my next question is related to a context actually. Ma'am, you campaigned against the mandatory wearing of skirts in the airline, the air hostess. So, in this context, I
No,
would like to ask,
ground.
yeah. So, in this context, ma'am, I would like to ask you your perspective on the thin line that is drawn upon religion, culture, race, heritage, which are many times intermingled. So, how much these four perspectives are different from one another?
Well, that's a very deep question, I must say, Divyanshi. What I would say is, firstly, please don't think I'm against women wearing skirts. Not at all. I believe a woman has
Definitely
a
not,
choice.
ma'am.
And I believe a woman has a choice as to how she has to dress. And I totally am against dress codes. And I'm totally against discussions which want to concentrate on whether I have a ghungat or not, or whether I have a burqa or not, or whether mera nakab theek hai ya ye hai ya wo. I'm totally against any dress codes. And the kind of things that women have to face today, कि अरे वो skirt पहनी हुई थी, तो ये क्या तरीका, ये हमारा परंपरा के खिलाफ. I'm against that. When I raised the issue of a skirt, mine was a question of, if I am working for an Indian national airline, working in London at the central office of Air India, and before that at the airport, I was not an air hostess. I was working at the airport at Heathrow Airport, Air India at Heathrow Airport. And I was told you can only wear a skirt. Now, I was 22 years old. Oh, I was 20. No, sorry, I was much younger. Yeah, I was 20 years old. And of course, I did wear skirts. But I said, why can't I wear a sari if I want to? Because I'm working for Air India. I'm not working for British Airlines. I'm not working for Pakistan Airlines. I'm working for Air India. So that was an issue which, it's surprising. It was the first, and I was alone. It was the first time it was raised. Now, when I raise that issue, is it because when you talk about religion, is it because it was against my religion to wear a skirt or against my quote unquote culture to wear a skirt? No. I believe my culture has taught me that there's a choice which an individual can exercise in our country. That is my legacy. That is my heritage. As long as I'm not hurting anybody else, attacking anybody else, and my choice of clothes is mine. So in the name of culture, what is happening today in the name of culture is an imposition of a particular kind of culture, which is representative, so-called, of quote unquote Indian culture. Why? India is pluralist. India is diverse. When we talk about biodiversity and protection of our plants and our trees, in any case, that is also being destroyed today. But what about diversity of culture, of language? Why should I only have to speak one language? Why? I want to speak Hindi. I want to speak Bengali, they're equal for me. ये क्या तरीका है? अगर कोई कहे कि बस हिंदी बोलिए, तो अगर मैं तमिलनाडु में जाती हूँ और मैं हिंदी बोलती हूँ, तो इसका मतलब मुझे माफी मांगना चाहिए कि मैं आपका भाषा नहीं जानती हूँ, मैं इसलिए हिंदी बोल रही हूँ. मैं ये तो नहीं कह सकती हूँ कि तुम क्यों नहीं हिंदी बोल रहे हो, क्योंकि मेरा भाषा एक ही भाषा है. या अगर मैं मुसलमान हूँ या मैं सिख हूँ, अगर कोई मुझे कहे नहीं तुम तो हिंदू हो क्योंकि ये हिंदुओं का देश है, ये कौन सा कल्चर है? ये कौन सा हेरिटेज है? ये हेरिटेज नहीं है. इसलिए मैं ये कहती हूं, जैसे हम ऑलरेडी डिस्कस कर चुके हैं, धर्म एक निजी सवाल है. मेरा धर्म जो मुझे सिखाता है, मैं उससे सीखती हूं. एंड आई टेल यू, देयर इज सो मच टू लर्न in so many religions, and there is so much to oppose in so many religious practices. Don't forget that. We have to oppose what is being done in the name of religion, because actually it's very little to do with religion. I go to a mandir if I want to. I don't have to hate somebody to go to a mandir, na? If I go to a masjid, why do I have to go to a masjid and say this masjid in this meeting and this I give a call to destroy others? Why? This is not what my religion teaches me. So the point is, there are lines which have to be drawn. Although certainly religion has in our own country had a very big impact on cultural practices, good and bad. If somebody just wants to take out the good and say this is our culture and leave out the bad, the bad, and say this is our culture and leave out the good, well, obviously we can't accept that. So my point is, there are differences, they overlap, but as thinking, informed individuals, we should not act blindly, without thought, without question, in the name of either religion or, because as women we know now, in the name of culture, what not has been imposed on us in the name of culture, and we've come forward fighting that culture, na? So choose what's good and reject what's bad. There's nothing which is all good.
That's definitely
Yeah.
That's definitely one of the most beautiful clarification I've heard in years about culture, race, religion, and heritage. Thank you so much, ma'am, for answering all our questions. Ma'am, I would like to take your message
Well,
for the
I
youth.
really, without sounding cliched, I do believe that the youth of India have shown during this pandemic the entirely positive energy of helping people in need. And I have seen throughout India the way youth have taken the initiative to come forward to help out those migrants, to come forward in numerous initiatives, taking risks with their own lives. So I think the positive energy which youth can give, which goes beyond their own personal ambition, which is a good thing. I'm not against personal aspirations and ambitions at all. But what you have shown the youth in the last 1 year is that you can go beyond to help out and reach out and think of others. Although this world's culture today teaches us, मैं ही सब कुछ हूँ, मैं ही हूँ, and nowadays today says, oh, this generation is just about मैं. I don't believe it. I do not believe it. Of course, there are people who do think only of themselves, but I don't think that's the growing trend among youth. And especially because of unemployment, because coming each and every one of us getting a shock in the pandemic and seeing what the world is. The crisis for most families. Every middle class family faced a huge crisis. So the youth, it was like a lightning shock that, look, this is what we will face unless we wake up and see the world and try and change that world. So I would say, fight for yourselves and fight for your rights, but fight for the rights of those around you, because that is what is going to make India a better place for all of us. And I want to once again congratulate each and every one of you, and you especially, Divyanshi, for arranging this wonderful program as General Secretary of the Kavya.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your words. I guess every youth who is listening this, and to the lakhs of the youth this video is going to reach, I guess they must be motivated to do further good in their lives. And so much thankful to you, ma'am, for all your good wishes to Kavya
All the
Varsha.
very best to
We
Kavya
def-
Varsha. All the very best.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining this live session, sparing your valuable time with us. It was such a pleasure to have you on the board today. Thank you so much, ma'am. And thank you to the viewers for joining this extremely wonderful session with none other than Brinda Karat, ma'am. She shared all her views, all perspective, and I guess so explicitly she shared her points. So it was wonderful listening to her. Thank you again.